Right, so I think we're ready to get rolling tonight, and it is my privilege to introduce to you our first speaker, Tamara Aparicio. And as a strategic wordsmith, Tamara creates scripts to support the most predictable and productive outcome of every event, taking business and projects across boundaries into opportunity. Love that line. Tamara is an award-winning marketing, branding, and advertising executive, having cut her teeth at companies such as Ogilvy and Mather, BBDO, Cable Music Channel, Gillette, Well, and Teleflora. This experience from multiple industries and disciplines inspires inventive and innovative ideas. Tamara is a prolific writer, from concept development to reframing the situation for optimal perspective. Tamara writes the most compelling script to get required results. Tamara, please help me welcome Tamara to the stage.
Thank you. Hold on a second while we get situated here. I have all my stuff. So, first thing I want everyone to do is to take out a coin. I won't pass a hat, I promise, but to take out a coin. We learn in 3 different ways. The first is by listening, the second is by seeing, and the third is by doing. So I'm hoping to cover that all today, so something that I say sticks. I'm going to take this off because I'm getting a hot flash. I don't know if you've had those before. So there we go. Each of you has received this brochure, so hang on to it because this is also part of the do of the session.
Really?
Yes, I believe that an intentional script is the most powerful way to bring you the most profound results in what you want to do. It is stated that 43% of people who write their goals, people who write their goals are 43% more likely to achieve them than those who don't. Statistically proven. So what I intend to talk to you about today is how to write your way into the starring role of your life. I have 3 ideas I'd like to go through, but first I want to ask you, how many of you are stuck somewhere? You're looking at your life saying, I don't know what I need to do next. I don't know what I need to do at all. I don't know who I am. And what am I doing here? Okay, all of these things are part of a process of fear, and we can talk about how we can thwart that as we go through the process of scripting your shift. So I'm going to try to hurry through to the material, the 3 ideas, and if we have time, I have a couple of bonuses, but they are on your list, so we can catch that up later. The first concept I want to talk to you about is called your character. When you imagine who you are at that point of success, who do you see yourself as? Okay, my role model is Anna Wintour. She is the editor of Vogue magazine, so the writing, and she is about 60, not to give away my age, but I'm getting close. And she's a single mom of a daughter about my child's age. So I have 2 kids though, so that's as far as the connection goes. But she makes $2 million a year, and she's a powerhouse. And I want to be a woman like that, because we need more role models like that. And so in scripting my shift, I look at character first. I want to give you an example of how character is really compelling. I met Anita Miranda within the last 9 months, and when I met her, she was doing lipstick readings at psychic fairs, some trade shows, in her wonderful way, but not really getting seen and heard. And when I experienced her, I thought, this is fabulous. She's got a talent, not just for the forensics, but for the intuitiveness of it. And when I asked her what she wanted to do, she said, I want to be a celebrity. And I looked at her and I said, what does that mean to you? And she said, oh, but I can't do that. I should be the lipstick reader to the stars. I said, then why aren't you? So we stepped her into that character. We designed her presence in the character of the lipstick reader to the stars, and she became the official lipstick reader. And just in the last 5 months or so, she's read for parties for Tori Spelling of 90210, for Katrina Smirnoff of Dancing with the Stars and her cosmetic launch, for luxury brands such as Sephora and Dior. And she was recently on a national NBC, I think it was, television. They invited her there to be their guest on Valentine's Day to talk about her kisses. Later on, you'll get a chance to grab one at her table. So, but I digress. That is how powerful it is when you step into the character of your success. That leads you into being that person, that successful person. But the next thing you have to do is look at your cast. Who are you bringing into your circle? Your clients, your collaborators, and your influencers. One idea of this, or one indication of how this works, is I worked with a woman named Sherry Anshara. She's a holistic health provider. She was working her way through the different health fairs around town and drumming up business that way, one-on-one, working with clients in her home. We first stepped her into her character, which we defined as Einstein meets Coco Chanel meets Coco Pelli, bringing her stuff together. So then we looked at her cast. We got the right people around her, but she needed influencers. And we went through and brought this new character to Vishen Lakhiani, who has a world-known online learning center called Mind Valley for self-improvement. And now Sherry is one of the featured teachers on Mind Valley for worldwide presence. That is getting your influencers. Once you step into your characters, you attract your cast, your crew, and your audience. And then you have to set the scene. So, setting the scene. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Daily Dose of Donna. Donna Sparacco started off getting on Facebook and just going live with her authenticity. But she hadn't yet stepped fully into her character, and when assisting her to do that and actually embracing Donna with her red pearl and all, and then going into her crew and cast of influencers and support team that she collected, her next step was to get on the scene and set the scene for her success. And how did she do that? She had to come up with a program or a way of formatting her business. She didn't want to be a dating coach, even though she wrote a book about dating. She didn't want to be just a life coach or anything like that. She didn't want to just show up at events and give workshops. What she wanted is to step on stage and have presence and inspire and motivate people. Well, to make that scene happen, she had to create a process, and she did. She created a process of set your dial to joy. When she set her dial to joy, now she can go on stage with that scene and always be aligned with the picture of what that stands for. She has her big dial, she has her presence, she's all set up. And so she is stepping into her celebrity role as a speaker for different motivating and inspirational events. So I have a few more minutes, correct? Awesome. Then we can get to a couple of the bonus things. Sometimes I tend to talk fast. I practice this really slow at home, I promise. So one of the bonus things I'd like to talk to you about is the critics. And the first critic you have to deal with is a critic in your head. What are you saying to yourself? And when you go through this process and script it, you find your words that you're saying to yourself, and you can change that. Wait a minute, I don't need to be a naysayer. There's enough of that around. Yes, I can. Yeah, I want to. What can it hurt? If I don't try, I'll never know. I can do this. Yes, I am. I am. I am. You put those words in your own mind so that when the critics come by, you've already thwarted what they're going to say. Oh yeah? Just watch me, right? And you can also get prepared for those critics who come up, because no matter who you are, once you start going a little bit good, and you're looking a little bit cute, or talking a little bit wise, someone is there to say, oh no, 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 you can't have that. And you say, just watch me. So that's a way to handle the critics in the world. And then there's the cut. When you're along the way, and you're looking at all the different things that are going on in your own chatter, you notice belief systems. It's not okay for me to spend that kind of money on my business, because it's not for my kids, or my family, or my community, because I have to be a caretaker. You can find ways to invest it on your business and then let your business make enough to be a caretaker for a bigger pool. You script that in your shift. You get rid of that belief system, you script it, you change it. You script that shift. People talk about shifting your script. Instead, you script your shift from here, where I am, to here, where I want to be. And then to there, because now I see further. Life says, come to the edge. And when you come to the edge and you look around and you see all of the things that you can do, don't just stop there and say, well, that's for someone else. Say, if me, how would that be? Who would I have to be to do that? Who would I have to be? And if you want it bad enough, you will see yourself on that other side, in the spotlight, as the celebrity, in the leading role of your own life. Thank you. So now if I could, I didn't see, did I run out of time? Okay, good. So now what I'd like to do is ask you to look at this. Inside, each of these elements are listed. And I advise you to take a journal at home and a pen in hand and jot down ideas for the prompts in here. That's like the first step to scripting your shift. Whether you're writing a business plan, a personal life plan, a strategy for social media, whatever it is, how are you going to show up? How are you going to do it consistently? And how are you going to feel doing it? And when you write it down, you are 43% more likely to be successful at what you choose to do. And that little coin in your hand, if you could take a moment and... Oh, I do? Okay, good, good, good. Oh, good. Then hang on to the coin. Tonight, I offer a program called The Perfect Pitch. So usually it's $300, but for anyone here tonight, you can get that for $150. You will get, just contact me for that. It will provide you with your powerful 30-second presentation of you, and we will wordsmith it together. Tonight, I am offering that to one of the raffle winners as the gift. So, good luck. And then if you would, take out your coin and scratch the little thing here. Because what I want to do is show you the power of a word. And while you're scratching, what I want to say is thank you to Annie for having me here. Thank you to Jill for having me here. Thank you to Anita Miranda for assisting me with this brochure that you all get to have, and with helping me to step into my camera-ready confidence. And with that, I want you to stand up for a moment, and you each have a word, and I've given you an I am statement, and I want you to say together. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then I want you to read your I am statement with power. 1, 2, 3. I am. Woo! And I leave you with that as we step into the sassiness of Isa later. I give you my word. Oh, and please stop by the booth with Anita Miranda, and she has a little bit of something for everyone.
So I get to introduce Annie tonight, which happened 4 years ago this evening for the first time. I facilitated for Annie and was the one who brought her to stage, and coincidentally, Isa was the speaker. So we're celebrating an anniversary this evening. So it is now my privilege to introduce you to our host, Annie Groth. For those of you who do not know personally Annie is a financial services professional with MassMutual. But more than that, Annie is a connector, a contributor, and a long-time commitment to women in our community. And she has such a unique perspective and insight into women and our relationship to money. For me personally, I attended one of the first Pearls of Wisdoms at Annie's conference room in 2008, after working with Annie on our family's finances for about 2 years at that time. So we've been together 12 years, Annie. Annie was referred to us by a dear friend, and isn't that how it always happens, that it's a trusted source who refers you to their trusted source? And at that time, I couldn't even see a reason to be meeting with a financial advisor. So both my husband and I have always been self-employed. We didn't have stock options, we did not have a 401k, we had no trusts, and really we had no money to manage, let alone to get investment advice on. But after meeting with Annie, on and off for a while, Annie taught me and gave me a complete 180 on how I view money, how it worked for me and not me for it. So there's no judgment or shame or embarrassment in conversations with Annie about money. She's not going to tell you not to shop and buy that great necklace from Jody or the earrings from Monique. But her powerful guidance has led our family to build a solid foundation for our future and for the future of our kids. And I found that my newfound understanding of money inspired me to want to raise our daughters with an empowered conversation about finances. So much so that when our oldest daughter, who is now married, on her 16th birthday, her birthday gift from Jim and I was an hour alone with Annie. So we got her early age thinking about her relationship to money and her financial future. So I know many of you might be thinking, that's really great, I'm glad it worked out for you, but I've already got a guy, right? How many of you have already got a guy, right? And I say good for you. So if you have somebody that you've taken a stand for your own financial well-being. But as in all health professional related services, you seek a second opinion, especially when it is your health at stake. And in this case, it's your financial health. And if your guy isn't someone, you left me a quarter, who isn't staying awake at night concerned for the future of your special needs child and your business's stability and your family's well-being, then you may want to consider taking Annie up on her offer to empower you and educate you, and maybe even simply validate that you are in fact healthy and that your health may depend on that. So I couldn't be more grateful to have Annie in my life, not only as my financial advisor, but as a very dear friend. So ladies, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Annie Groth.
How do you follow that? Hi, my name is Annie Groth, and for those of you who have not been here before, welcome. I'm grateful to see all of the new faces, and certainly more grateful to see all of you who are repeat guests, and hope that you find value in what I'm going to present tonight. But since Jill mentioned my eyelashes, I have to take my glasses off, and so, right? I know, I don't know, I don't remember. Alicia, the second time, when did I start doing this? Maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and it's remarkable. And the really great thing about it is it's not toxic, it doesn't hurt your eyes and all that, but I have to put my glasses back on, otherwise I can't see. So again, thank you for being here, and many of you have different reasons for being here. Some of you came just because Tamara's fabulous, and you want to hear about what Issa's got to say. Who doesn't want to hear about what Issa's got to say? But others of you may want to have a consideration about what it means to have a conversation internally about your money. Because I know you're having that conversation. And a lot of times what happens with us as women, I'm not doing it right. I'm not smart enough. Somebody else will do it. I'll ask my dad, I'll ask my husband, I'll ask my partner, because I can't manage it myself. Well, I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. And the reason I know that you can is because I have been working with women just like you since 2000. I made a decision when I first got into this industry that women were my passion as far as their money is concerned. Why is that? Because we live longer, right? There isn't going to be anybody around to take care of us if we don't take care of ourselves. And so a lot of people will get into the idea that their husband, their partner, their wife is going to take care of them financially. That might be true, but how do you know? How do you know? Have you done your financial physical? I always like to tell people that I'll take a financial x-ray and I'll find out if you've got a break or if you're bleeding somewhere and that we need to do an emergency procedure. Sometimes when you come see me, I'll say, oh, you know what, this is okay. This we might need to tweak a little bit. There was a woman in my office the other day, and I won't mention any names because she's here, and this doesn't happen just to her, it happens all the time. I told her, I said, I don't usually do this in the first meeting. You need to call XYZ as soon as you leave here and change this today. Because a lot of times there are things that hurt us financially that we have no idea that it's lurking. Most financial professionals don't talk about the 27 places that you can put your money. They'll maybe talk about 2, and if you're lucky, they'll talk about 4. Maybe. There are actually 27 places that you can put your money, and they're in 3 distinct components. The first component is protection, the second component is savings, and the last is growth. Everybody wants to be in the growth component, but I always say when you cross that line and you get into the growth component, all safety is gone. All bets are off. So if you haven't done your work in the savings and the protection component, you could be in trouble. So that's what we help you identify, is to make sure that all 27 places you can put your money are coordinated and integrated. Because what happens in our financial lives, we make financial choices and decisions that do this. They fight each other rather than coordinate and integrate. So what I help people do is identify that. I will also tell you, and there are women in this room who work with me, aside from Jill, when you come to my office, there's no judgment. I always tell people if there's judgment in my office, it's in the chair that you're sitting in or outside of the door. Because we all got there somehow. Maybe it's some advice that we listened to previously. Maybe it's something that we made up. You know, I always tell people, I'm a master at making things up. I make stuff up all the time. And then I make it be true, because I know I have a box full of gold medals for stuff I've made up and made it be true. But money isn't one of the items that we want to do that with. Because we don't want to get down the road and say, uh-oh, I should have, I could have, but I didn't. So let me give you an example of what that might mean to you. How many of you, given what's going on with the financial world right now, how many of you believe, whether it's 10 years from now or 20 years from now, believe that you will be in a lower tax bracket when you retire than you are today? How many of you believe you'll be in a lower tax bracket? One person. It's impossible. Why do I know that it's impossible? Because the middle class tax breaks expire in 2025. Right? So what does that mean to you? We have a government that is hooked on spending money, don't we? We like to spend money. Our government likes to spend money. And where did they get that money from? Us, right? So there are strategies that you can employ to help offset what's going to happen when you get there. And a lot of people don't talk about those strategies. That's one of the places where I focus, because I want you to pay your taxes today in your seeding years rather than in your harvesting years. Let's pay our taxes today when we know what tax bracket we're going to be in, rather than when we get there and we say the infamous 2 words, oh crap, now what am I going to do? So that's one of the ways that I help people. Financial institutions all have the same 4 rules. And who are the financial institutions that we all work with? The IRS is probably the largest, right? All insurance companies, all banks, all mortgage companies. One of my favorite mortgage lenders is here, Michelle Byer, if you need a new mortgage. Before we can't write off our mortgages anymore, or the interest of our mortgages. And so financial institutions, our Visa, our car payments, our house payments, all of those are financial institutions, and they have the same 4 rules. The first rule is, and anyone who's a business owner in here would not disagree with this, the first rule is, they want your money, right? How do financial institutions get your money? How do they do that? Mortgages, fees, but how do they get you to get there? They advertise. Like every now and again, I hope there's no one here from Chase, but every now and again, I'll get a letter from Chase and offer me $500 if I'll come to Chase and bring somebody with me. I mean, that's a pretty good incentive. I always tell people, and I always give my age away. When I was little, it was, you got a percolator, right? You know, and so now we've just moved to cash because nobody wants stuff anymore. They just want cash. So they want your money. The second rule is they want your money on a regular and ongoing basis. How do financial institutions get our money on a regular and ongoing basis? Finance, interest, taxes, car payments, credit card payments, regular and ongoing basis, right? The third rule is they want our money on a regular and ongoing basis, and they want to hold on to it for as long as possible, right? Mm-hmm. So any car insurance, property and casualty insurance people here? So you finally have a car accident. That's the only way you're ever going to get any of your premium dollars back. Yeah. That's not a winning strategy, right? Oh my gosh, I've been paying car insurance since I was 16. Regular and ongoing basis, they hold on to it. I finally have an accident, and then they're going to employ the fourth rule. They want to give me back as little as possible. What's the first thing they want when I call them about my accident? Well, they want the deductible. They want more money, right? And then they're either going to cancel you or raise your rates. So they want your money, regular ongoing basis, hold on to your money as long as possible, and give you back as little as possible. My job as a financial professional is to help you turn the table on the financial institutions and give you back more than you otherwise would have kept if you wouldn't have come to see me. What do you believe, and this is just kind of an open question, what do each of you believe is your largest asset?
Real estate. Myself. Yeah.
Yourself? What else? Health? What else?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Retirement.
What's that? Retirement? Time. I would argue that each of us, the biggest asset that we all have is our ability to earn an income. Right? That's our biggest asset. Right? Because we've got to make sure that we can keep it going as long as we're working, because we want to save money, we want to, take fabulous trips, we want to do all those things. How many of you know what you would do if you got too sick or hurt to go to work tomorrow and couldn't have a paycheck? What would you do? That's a scary question, isn't it? There are things that you can do to prevent that, remember the 2 words a minute ago, oh crap? There are things that you can do to help prevent having that conversation internally, to make sure that you're protected under all circumstances. I'll close with, I'm sort of going to close because then I'm going to talk about the YWCA for a minute. But I'll close with this. There are some questions that I would like for you to ask yourself about your financial life. And the questions are, does your financial life work no matter if you live too long or die too soon? You get too sick or hurt to go to work? Mortgage rates go up or down? Interest rates go up or down? Taxes go up or down? Or if you get into a lawsuit? Does your financial life work under all of those circumstances? If you say, I don't know, or you say no to one of those questions, you need to come see me. Because we can make sure, most of the time, that your life works under all circumstances. And the really great news, Robin and Liz back at the table will take your name and number, and I'll call you. And again, I'm not a phone or email stalker. Although I did recently meet with a very successful man in Atlanta who told me that I had to call you at least 8 times. I'm not sure where the 8 came from, but I do know that I have to tell you something 10 times before you'll remember it. You know, Tamara gave us a statistic earlier. That's one. You have to tell somebody something 10 times. That's why we see commercials over and over and over, because we don't retain it. But anyway, if you want to come see me, just tell the girls. And I don't charge fees. I made a decision when I first got into this business that I didn't need to be paid twice. So I get paid one of 2 ways. I get paid if you decide that you want to have a financial vehicle to help your financial life work. Those companies will pay me a fee once we put that into place. And my favorite way to be paid is what Jill alluded to earlier, is if you're pleased with what I've done, is you tell your closest 200 friends to come see me. Only 200. And then I just want to talk about the YWCA just for a moment. I'm on the board of directors for the YWCA, and Regina Edwards, the CEO, is here sitting in the back. She and her team have been so gracious to help facilitate Pearls of Wisdom since I've been on the board of directors. Jill is our board chair and does just an extraordinary job at the YW. My favorite program with the YW, and I'm sure you got the flyers, is We Feed 4 Feet. And what we found, the YW does Meals on Wheels in the West Valley. And what we found is that the senior citizens were giving, if not most of, but all of their meals to their pets. Rather than eating themselves, they were making sure that their little kitty kids or doggy kids had something to eat. So we created We Feed 4 Feet. And we have a lot of generous donations, and thank you. I would like to take credit for that. I didn't, but it's the thing that I champion more than anything else with the YW. So if you want to donate gift cards, Kathy Saunders, who runs the program out there, she, buys food for the kids who have allergies, that need different kinds of foods. We buy, like last time I donated for the YW, I don't know if you all brought things from the wish list tonight. I bought a bunch of toys for the kitties and puppies. So just if you would keep that in mind. And we also have, if you go to the website, and I'm sure I saw that you all got flyers tonight, we have some really extraordinary programs coming up. You're welcome to become a member of the YWCA. And we have a lot of isms that we need to heal in our world. A lot of isms. But our 2 main focuses are to help empower women and to end racism. So, those are our goals, those are our mission. We're as old as Arizona in the Valley. On February 14th, we just celebrated our 105th anniversary of being in the Valley. Yeah, so if you want to know more about the YWCA, certainly you can ask me, you can ask Jill, but in your spare time, because all of us have so much of that, feel free to go to the YW and check it out. It's a really worthwhile organization for you to be part of. Thank you very much.
So I'm really thrilled to welcome back Isa Jones to Pearls of Wisdom. Let me tell you just a little bit about Isa. Isa has been educating and inspiring people to live with more passion, self-confidence, and joy for over 20 years. Through her workshops, private practice, and public speaking engagements, she spreads her powerful vision of sexual health and vitality. Isa is the founder and owner of the Scottsdale Center for Sex and Relationship Therapy. She and her team of sex therapists empower individuals and couples to create meaningful relationships rooted in emotional intimacy and fueled by erotic desire. Her areas of specialization include cultivating eroticism in long-term love relationships, helping couples become an erotic team, and helping couples heal and transform their relationships in the aftermath of infidelity. Isa is a licensed marriage and family therapist, MFT supervisor, certified sex therapist, and clinical sexologist. She is the Western Region Director and Arizona State Section Leader for the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, the international governing body certifying sex therapists. Please help me welcome Isa Jones.
Can we give feedback if Did you okay?
I'm gonna turn this off.
Okay. So we're going to test the mic. We haven't tested it yet to make sure that you can hear me okay. Is this okay? Yeah. Feels good? All right.
You hear it?
Great. And then I'm going to ask also, Jill, if you could help me. I didn't bring a watch and, or a clock, so I'm just floating in space up here.
I'll give you
Could you,
I'll give you
can you give me a,
And I'll give you a 1 minute.
Your mic needs to be closer to your mouth.
Oh,
If you're gonna
okay,
use
good.
that one. They cannot hear you back here.
Okay.
thank you. How's that? Is that better?
Little
Higher.
louder.
Oh, okay. Let's try that. This is kind of sexy, like a little bit higher, a little bit to the left. Not quite there yet. Is this okay? Is that, no, I'm talking to the people in the back. Is that okay? Better? All right. Well, have you heard about good enough sex? All right. That's about as good as it's going to get, unless I hold it.
That's good.
Okay.
So you want
15 minutes?
15 minutes?
5 minutes,
Okay.
and 1 minute. Thank you. All right. We've been through a lot already. It feels like we've had some time to visit, we've had some snacks, we've learned from, is it Tamara or Tamara? Tamara about branding, which is awesome. That was so fabulous. Thank you. And I love listening to you, Annie. You just get me all excited about being better with money. So thank you. And now we're going to transition into a whole new arena, that of sexuality. So when I enter a new group of people that I've never met before, one of the first things I like to do is introduce myself and then get to know you a little bit. And I recognize that sexuality can provoke a lot of different feelings in people. Some of you might be really excited to kind of talk about this. Others of you might feel some anxiety. Others of you might be concerned about getting triggered in some way. So I just want to encourage you all to take care of yourselves and let you know that I talk about this every day. And so for me, I like to tell my clients when I first sit down with them that honestly, there's nothing you could do or say that would freak me out or make me feel uncomfortable. But I know that's unusual for people because most of us, and maybe raise your hands if you're like me, and most of us who are raised in this very sex-negative culture and never really got a good sex education, nor empowered role modeling around what sexual health looks like and how to enjoy. In fact, I'll just ask this question. Let's just cut it down. How many of you had conversations with your parents about the importance of sexual pleasure? You did. See, there's always one or two. And this is why I say most of us, because there are a lucky few. So thank you, Sharon Friendly. So I just want to welcome you as you are and really create a comfortable space for us to talk about this. And so as a way of introducing myself, I've actually been in a long-term relationship now for 28 years. I have 3 teenage or young adult age daughters now. And so what I talk about, what I specialize in is really eroticism in long-term love relationships because I found it to be a really important ingredient to my relationship. And we tend to kind of do the things that we're interested in and then learn how to make a living out of it if we so choose. So that's kind of my backstory. But I'd like to ask you, think here. Let me just say one more thing. As a sex therapist, I do not have sex with my clients. Some people don't know that, and so I want you to know that I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist who's had very extensive specialized training in sexuality. And just a consumer alert, in the state of Arizona, a couple things. First, sex education doesn't have to be scientifically accurate, okay? And secondly, in the state of Arizona, there is no licensure around the language of sex therapy, so anyone can call themselves a sex therapist. And so if you are interested in getting really specialized help in this aspect of your life or your relationship, then you want to look for a certified sex therapist.
There's a big difference. That means that person has actually received extensive training and isn't going to bring their own biases into the conversation. In fact, the joke is in the DSM, which is the manual, the diagnostic statistical manual that's used for defining mental health illness, back in actually up to the 70s, nymphomaniac was in there. And a nymphomaniac was defined basically by the therapist if they had sex more than the therapist did. So you have to be careful when you're talking about sex that you're talking with somebody who's who's aware of their biases. This is not gonna impose them onto you.
And don't just find them off casual encounters on Craigslist.
Right. You don't just find them off casual encounters. Unless you're looking for a different type of encounter, then more power to you. So, okay, let's just kind of get some energy in the room. I'm curious to know a little bit about you. What words come to mind when you just think about anticipating talking about sexuality?
Depends on with whom I'm going to have the conversation.
Okay, so right now in this room, in a public setting. Curiosity. What else?
Interesting.
Interesting. No wrong answers here.
No big deal.
No big deal. Energy.
Curiosity.
Curiosity again. Anything else? Any discomfort? What was that? Bring it. Okay. All right. Everybody, take off your clothes. Okay. All right. Great. So, in terms of your history and your experience in your own sex lives, I'm curious to know how many of you have experienced a change in your level of motivation or your desire or even your satisfaction over time in a relationship? Just about everybody. Okay? How many of you have noticed that with time, and let's say after a year and a half, 2 years, that the level of interest and satisfaction and fulfillment has gone down? Some of you? You don't have to. By the way, one of the first sexual health principles I like to teach is the difference between compliance and consent. It's a big distinguishing factor. A lot of people who come in and see me with a breakdown of desire come to find that they have been engaging in what I call compliant sex, which is the thing you do because if you don't, your partner will be mad at you, or they'll give you a hard time, or they won't let you go to sleep at night, or there's some negative consequence that will come your way if you don't engage with them sexually. Versus consent, which is, yes, I'm interested. Yes, I want this. Okay, so as I ask these questions, if you don't want to raise your hand, you don't have to. This is all about consent, not compliance. I don't feel compelled. All right, so have any of you experienced an uptick over years of being with the same partner? The sexual relationship has become more enjoyable, more gratifying, more rich? Great. So we've got Sarah again, the one who had Sharon. Oh, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. The lucky parents in this regard. Okay, and a few others I saw hands going up. Okay, one of the big, probably number one presenting complaints that people come to my office with is the breakdown of desire. And this is men and women in today's world. So the most common complaint I'm going to be seeing in my office is, I don't know what happened to my sexual energy. I don't know what happened to my desire for sex. I'm really not that interested in sex anymore. What's wrong with me? The first thing I like to tell them is, where did you get the idea that you should desire sex? We need to back up the truck a little bit here. Because so much of what we've come to think about sexuality, the expectations, what sex is even, has been prescribed by male sexuality. The clitoris wasn't even in medical literature till the 1990s.
Seriously?
Seriously. So here's what I'm saying to you. A few things that are important. Number one, probably didn't get this message, or you weren't taught this, that there are two kinds of desire that exist. One is spontaneous desire, and the other is responsive desire. Both are a thing, both are real. Women's sexuality oftentimes is more responsive in nature, which means I need to have a certain context in place in order for me to feel motivated to be sexual. Okay? So what might some of those things be? Think back into your history. What are some of the things that you notice that contribute to your desire to be sexual? Go ahead.
I need to feel loved and understood.
Beautiful. One of the number one things. I need to feel loved and understood. I need to feel safe with my partner. Okay, great. What else? Connection. Beautiful. Kind of along those same lines. Connection with my partner. Yeah?
I need to feel good about my body.
Oh, that's another really good one. Yes, number 2. I need to feel good about my body. It's really hard to imagine if you don't like this body of yours. It's hard to imagine how somebody else can. And if they do, they're kind of crazy. You know, they kind of don't know what they're looking at, you know? In fact, one of my funny stories I like to tell with this is, you know, if you're the only naked body in the room, you're the hottest thing on the planet. A lot of women don't realize this. But also that, you know, sometimes we underestimate. I think we get really hard on ourselves as women. We compare ourselves oftentimes to these kind of ideal bodies, young bodies, and these are some of the myths that are perpetuated in culture. What is sexy? We tend to think of youth, big boobs, you know, fit bodies, long hair, you know, whatever. So the research is actually really clear on this, and this research has been done over socioeconomic levels, different cultures, even different geographies. That the number one thing that makes a woman's, this was done on heterosexual couples, so it would be interesting in same-sex couples. So unfortunately we don't have enough research on same-sex couples. But the number one thing that makes a woman sexually attractive in her partner's eyes, and this research was her male partner's eyes, is responsiveness. That it's a woman who communicates, there's nowhere else she'd rather be than making love with this partner in this moment.
It's the same.
It's the same. Because why? Think about it. Because why? Because what does that convey to your partner?
That you're present.
You're wanted, you're present, you're desired. And so this whole idea that I have to have perfect boobs or my butt has too much cellulite and all these things are going to prohibit me from really being sexy is bananas. I mean, what really makes somebody sexy is confidence. Somebody who likes who they are and enjoys their body, regardless of how it looks, you know, in light or in a mirror. I actually had a couple ones, you know, oftentimes men are more visually stimulated, so they'll get more aroused with visual stimuli, whereas females often track more auditorily, which is why, you know, a lot of visual stimulation men respond to, which also explains when, you know, I'm married to a man, and when I get out of the shower, he can be really turned on. Like, oh, wow, that's, you know, get over here, baby. And if he gets out of the shower, nothing. It does nothing for me. But if he comes up to me and tells me how beautiful I am, how much he appreciates how hard I work, if he, you know, sends me text messages to say, I just want you to know, I'm thinking about you, I'll have a bath ready for you when you get home, which I have a text right now in my purse that says that. When I get home, call me, I'll make a bath. Then I want to open up to this man. It's different. It's different. So spontaneous desire is, I'm kind of in the mood for sex, and I'm just looking for an opening. Literally, I'm just looking for an opening. One of the things that changes though with time in men, and you probably notice this if you've aged and you've dated men or you've been with somebody over time, is that men's desire actually becomes more responsive as they age. And they don't know that about themselves. They come in and they're like in their 40s and they're saying, I don't know what's wrong, I'm losing my erections, I'm not getting erect because, you know, I don't know, I love my wife, I love my male partner, I love who I'm with, I don't want another relationship, but I don't know what's wrong. And I say, well, you know, have you heard of foreplay? You're gonna need more stimulation as you age. Also, if you're stressed out about money, if you're dissatisfied in your relationship, maybe you're really angry with your partner, then you're gonna have a much harder time getting aroused in your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s than you would have in your 20s and 30s. When, who cares if I'm stressed out? Who cares if I even know my partner? And so in some ways, it's kind of nice because both of these styles become a little more compatible so you can get more creative together. So spontaneous desire says, sex begins with this state of mind. It's a mental state of desire. I want to have sex. Followed by arousal, which is the physiological state of getting aroused, engorged, lubricated, erect, the body's kind of getting turned on. Followed by orgasm, typically the male's orgasm, if we're in this performance model of sex, and then, we're done. We scored, home run, all these very male kinds of metaphors for sex. So one of the big things I want to change for all of you today, and to maybe talk to your partner about if you're in a sexual relationship, is a new model for sex. So to get out of this stair-step model, what I call the sex as a pass-fail test, foreplay, intercourse, orgasm, and we're done, to what I call sensual energy exchange sex, S-E-X, sensual energy, the second letter, exchange, it's a big X, sex, where it's all about pleasure and connection. Couples who can do this will stay sexually active until they die. Couples who stay bound to this intercourse model, that they have to have, a PVP, penile-vaginal penetration is what it's called in the literature, are the ones that trail off. In fact, in heterosexual couples, 85% of those couples in their 50s and above who have sexless relationships now, who are no longer engaging in an active sex life, are in that state because the male partner has withdrawn from sex. See? Because they're no longer getting these reliable, predictable erections they once had, and they don't know what to do about that except for withdraw from sex altogether. Does that make sense? So it's really important to kind of learn some new ways of being sexual together. The other big thing that this does is you can create what I call an erotic sprinkle in the relationship. An energy together where, if your partner comes up and just, tickles you in the back of your neck, you can respond with a momentary acknowledgement of that feels good, honey, and then go back to getting your work done without it feeling like rejection, without it feeling like, if my partner approaches me this way, then we have to get to the bedroom and lock the door and go on a full-blown, intercourse section or, session. So the erotic sprinkle basically gives permission for you to engage each other in ways to feel sexual, to be seen as sexual, to flirt in ways without demands attached to it, without demand for intercourse attached to it. Because what happens, and I'll just ask this question, you don't have to answer it out loud, but I love to ask this question. I've yet to hear somebody answer it differently. Couples where the breakdown has occurred and they're no longer enjoying this vibrant sex life, I'll ask them, do you ever just kiss each other the way you used to? Like that really sensual, juicy kind of French kiss. Do you ever just do that on its own? Or if you do that now, is it just kind of what you do, the thing you do 10 minutes before the real thing? Is it this means to an end thing that you do before intercourse? Never have I had a client tell me that they still kiss like this as a standalone experience and they've had a breakdown in their sexual relationship. So can we open up these little windows, these little moments where you get to feel, you get to stoke this kind of energy in your relationship. You get to remember what that feels like without it requiring anything else. Just kind of keeping that low burn going. So oftentimes, when people come to me and they say, you know, I no longer experience desire, you know, we want to look at a lot of things. There could be biological, hormonal things going on. There could be relational things going on. There could be view of self and body image, you know, getting in the way. But one really important question I like to ask is, you know, A, is it that you've really lost your desire? Or is it that you've lost your desire for the sex you think you can have? Those are two different things. Because most people get into a pattern together where they kind of have, you know, they kind of know what works. They kind of got, you know, 1 or 2 or 4 ways of being together sexually that they do every time. And for most people, particularly women, by the way, we're more connoisseurs. We're very misunderstood sexually. You know, women are thought to have less desire, but here's how it goes. Women's desire drops rapidly when sex becomes uninteresting. Whereas men can sustain their desire in spite of the sex not being as interesting because it's spontaneous desire. It's not responsive desire. So, you know, I ask, well, what's the kind of sex you might be interested in having? Sensual energy exchange. You know, it might be dancing and grinding. You know, that's sexy. It might be, you know, being flirted with. It might be, you know, here's one of the key governing principles around women's sexuality that most women and men don't appreciate, which is women's sexuality is very narcissistic in a particular way. What really turns women on, and I'll say most women because there's always variations, but what really turns women on is to be the turn on. So we know it's us that you want, not it that you want. And the way we know that is through seduction. And so the minute sex becomes this expectation, this thing we do on Sunday night, this thing that starts this way and goes this way and becomes very safe and predictable and perfunctory, we've lost the erotic dimension of the sex. It's gone. And so that's why it becomes uninteresting. I mean, I'd rather check my email or catch up on a Netflix show. Or, you know, what's so great about that? Really, not much. So, very seldom do couples complain about the frequency, but every couple complains about the erotic dimension, the vitality, the energy that they hoped they would once feel, you know, with their partners that they're missing, that they're now missing. So where are we at on time? Did I miss? Oops. 11 minutes? Okay, because I missed the 15-minute one, so I wanted to make sure I didn't go too far. Okay. So this is good. We have 11 more minutes, so I want to give you a couple little pearls. Let's go here, pearls. Okay. So first of all, identify for yourself. Do I have spontaneous desire more often, or do I have responsive desire more often? And if it's responsive desire, if you're not just sitting here like looking for a guy to F you, you know what I mean? If that's not how you feel right now, then you probably have responsive desire. So I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to take a breath and really enter your body and go back to a time and a place, and it may be with your current partner, it may be earlier in your relationship with your current partner, it may be with a past partner, it could be with a stranger, it could be any experience where you remember it as what I call a peak erotic experience. You were so turned on. Oh my God, this was so exciting. So put yourself back in that scene where you were so turned on and so lit up and felt so alive, sexually free. And if you can't think of one, that's okay. Just be kind to yourself and sit with that. But if you can, see if you can identify just 2 elements that made it so exciting for you. Was it the weather? Was it what you were wearing? Is it the music that was playing? Was it the kinds of textures? Was it the fact that it was taboo? You were doing something naughty you shouldn't be doing? Was it the environment? It was outside. Was it the dynamic? Was it power exchange in some way? What was it that you can now identify as, yeah, that was really hot. That aspect really made it hot for me. And again, this doesn't have to be sex. This can be when I felt really turned on. It might have been just dancing with somebody where you felt so turned on. Okay, open your eyes. And who's willing to share just an element or two so we get just some ideas about your erotic mind? I call it your red light district. Everybody has one. Go ahead.
The unknown.
The unknown. Beautiful. What's your name?
Michelle.
Michelle, thank you. So the unknown. There was something unknown. Okay, I'm going to just piggyback on that for a moment because that's so important what you just said. Okay, we have these two basic human needs, everybody. One is the need for security and, connection and safety. This is a basic human need we need to have. The other is basic human need for autonomy, for adventure, for growth, for innovation. We have both of these needs, the need for security, the need for adventure, the need for togetherness, the need for autonomy and independence. We have both needs. Some of us come out of our family of origin with a heightened tolerance for risk and a higher need for security. And we tend to pair with someone whose proclivities match our insecurities. So somebody who's really good with risk and independence tends to pair with somebody who's really good at connection and stability, and they make for a really nice team when they respect and love each other in this way. They both bring this to the relationship. But what happens is once couples come together, often they really get into these roles of family, Inc., and business and work, and they stop fueling the things that were so erotic that made it so exciting at the beginning. And they think, well, gee, if I'm going to have eroticism, I have to have it with somebody else because I already know this person. We've kind of done everything we could think of. There's not that, what else is there? And so, eroticism is really life-affirming energy. It's not about sex. It's not about sex toys and different positions. That doesn't really change anything. What makes sex erotic is what I like to call erotic intimacy, and that's where what we know bumps up against what we have yet to discover in our partner sexually. Okay? It's when core parts of ourselves are revealed through a sexual space. It's its own kind of language sometimes. Words aren't even spoken. The body can really convey things that words sometimes cannot. So, what happens sometimes is people get really into the security and the home and the family and the anchoring and the rules and the predictability, which is all so essential for family life. I mean, any parents in here, you need to have a routine, bedtime, boo-doo-boo, bum-bum-bum, so you don't have to work so hard. I mean, you gotta have that stuff nailed down, otherwise it's chaos. But those very things are the things that really dampen the eroticism in a relationship. So the way that you can create more eroticism in a stable, loving home environment is to consciously and intentionally infuse it with these erotic elements like uncertainty. So, uncertainty was really exciting to me. How can I bring uncertainty to my relationship with this person that I love and care about? Well, that's a really good question, because a lot of times people don't want to feel uncertainty with their committed lover or their committed companion. So, there's this thing, great, thank you. Can I want what I already have? Because if you think about the verb that goes with want, with desire, is to want, where the verb that goes with committed love is to have. So can you have what you already want, is kind of this question. And I'd like to say, this is really a paradox that we manage. It's not a problem to solve, and it really is a systemic challenge. It's in business, it's everywhere. I mean, how much of us is going to be reliable, predictable, we know what we have, and how much of us is going to be about growth and expansion and innovation, you know? So the truth is you never really have your partner. Your partner could die, your partner could go somewhere else, and in some respects, eroticism is commensurate with the amount of uncertainty that you can tolerate in that relationship. Too much is it's a breakdown. You don't want that necessarily, but it's a posture. So if I had a chair, well, just imagine me in a chair. If I had a chair like home and stability and safety and comfort and all these things, like if I had breast cancer, I'd want my husband to be right there and he would be there and I'd be there for him. That's really important, that security, and that just feels cozy, like a chair. Imagine I'm leaning back in a chair all cuddled up, my legs aren't shaved, it's great, you know? Whereas eroticism is a totally different thing. It's like you're at the edge of your chair, you're looking out, and you're kind of like, what's next? It's uncertain. There's curiosity. That's what's erotic. So I'm going to leave you with 3 things you can do to add more eroticism to your relationship, because we're already on to one, and that is remain curious about your partner. Imagine you don't know everything about your partner, because you don't. It's an illusion to think you know your partner like the back of your pocket. I work with couples every day after an infidelity that say, who the f are you? I never thought you could do this. Or pulling up all these text messages. Oh, what kind of a woman? This is the woman I've been dying for. Where has she been for the last 10 years? I can't wait to blow you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what? Who are you? You know what I mean? It's crazy. Our partner shows us parts of themselves. We never fully know our partner. So a little thing you could do is remain curious. So I live with this just paradigm, like even though I've been with my partner for so long, I just imagine I know 20% of him and 80% is still to discover. And just with that paradigm, I have cognitive bias. So at least 2-3 times a week, I learn something new about him. Because he's not, oh, predictable, I know you, like, no. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You do an acupuncture? Like, that's new. And people change over time, too. Because, like, when we were first married, he thought acupuncture was for the birds. And now he's talking about doing acupuncture. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. So that's one thing. Another thing is to create erotic rituals, not routines, rituals. So rituals are a space that you enter to kind of be there in a sexual way with your partner with no expectations. So most people save their sexual relationship for the last thing they do before they go to bed at night. Often in a bedroom that's cluttered with like a cross of Jesus over the bed and kids and laundry, and it's not an erotic space. So one of the things I would invite you to do is come up with an erotic practice, like you do yoga, every 3 days a week to kind of connect to that. You have a ritual with your partner that you say, come, let's leave Management Inc., let's leave mom and dad, let's leave the bills, let's go into this erotic space that we create with lighting, with music, with food, with color, with clothing, that really allows us to feel sexual together and enjoy this part of our relationship together. Let's not let that go. Because fact of the matter is, a lot of people, they have plenty of eroticism, but they just redirect it into their jobs. All their creativity, all the responsiveness is going into their work or into their kids, but not into their mate. Okay? So last thing I would encourage you to do is do new things together. And this is good, final minute. So anything new where you can discover new parts of yourself and new parts of your partner. Just, hey, let's go take a walk around the block. We normally don't do that. Hey, let's try a new restaurant. We normally don't do that. Hey, let's drive home a different way. We normally don't do that. It could just be anything. Honestly, you don't have to think that hard about it. Because when you get into new spaces with your partner, you're going to learn new things about them, about him or her. So I'll end with that, but I just want to thank you all so much for being here and having me talk a little bit more about sexuality, and I think it's important. So thank you all.
Appreciate that. Well, here's the first one off the top. It's for all of you. How did you decide what you wanted to do as a career? Oh, that's an easy one for all 3 to answer.
I don't know if I mentioned it, but I grew up on Webster Avenue. So words were my friend. Back in the day, Webster was a dictionary. Now you Google everything. I had a compelling desire to do something creative and business. So I ran away from home because I was defiant, and I grew up in a time when my father said, "Why aren't you engaged? You're almost out of high school." So I ran away from home, went to college, and tried to figure out what would be a career for me. And that's when I found advertising to be kind of where I was going to go. My other career that I will start someday, I desire being a fashion designer. And that will be my next gig.
Oh, shall I go now?
Sure.
All right. I love what you said, Tamara, about your next career, because I think we can have many seasons of our lives and have many careers, including being full-time stay-at-home mom and whatever else really enlivens you. So I came to my current career by just following and trusting my instincts. Like, I had a sense for what I was good at, and I knew what I was interested in. And so I just paid attention to, when do I feel most alive? What matters to me most? What kind of contribution do I want to make to myself, to my family, to my community? And how can I make money doing that? So that's kind of how my thinking process went. And this actually is I feel weird holding it like this. This is a second career, or maybe third, fourth career even, if you think about it. I went back to school and got my master's at ASU in my 40s and graduated and started practicing at the age of 45. So you can have lots of different careers. And in case you're wondering, I'm 51 now. Some people ask, which is great. I'm really trying to change the narrative about women and aging. That there's no such, I don't believe in anti-aging. I'm very pro-aging. So I think that's a problem in our culture. Other cultures don't think like we do about that. But, so that's my answer. Trusting your instincts.
Can I just say something about that?
Yes.
Aging?
Mm-hmm.
There is a Ms. Senior Arizona pageant.
Wow,
That's
wow.
60 and above.
There we go.
So-
I hope you're a contestant.
I was.
Okay. Oh, well, of course you did. Yes, thank you. Give it up for Miss Senior Arizona in your midst.
It's funny that you say that, Isa. I always say I don't mind getting older. I just don't want to be old. And I think that's a really important distinction to make.
Yeah.
How did I get to where I am doing what I do? I don't know. I wanted to help people from the time I was, this tall. In this particular career, I've employed, thousands of people in my life in my previous profession. And I always laugh that I am one of those people that believe when 3 birds fly past the moon on a Thursday, it means something. And this career really just happened after I sold a successful chain of Quiznos sandwich shops. And it was just one of those things that kind of fell in my lap, and I just said, why not, and welcomed it.
Mm-hmm. So this question is for Isa. Is there such a thing as too much sex? Will it make your partner less interesting over time? And can you get desensitized to sex?
Okay, so question 1, is there such a thing as too much sex? First of all, are we talking about sex means intercourse, I'm assuming. But of course there can be such a thing of too much anything. I mean, too much, to me, what criteria are you using to determine enough versus too much? And so I would be more interested, or a more useful question might be, what do I want to experience erotically and sexually, and am I experiencing that? Because if I'm not, then maybe I want to change that, or maybe, a lot of times we think about sexuality on a spectrum of gender orientation versus on sexual orientation as a interest in sexuality, period. So there are people where asexuality means they're just really not interested in being sexual and being aroused. It's not important to them, and that's perfectly fine. Nobody says you need to, or you should, or you're broken if you don't. And then you have this other extreme at this end that you might call that one really hypersexual, and this would be a person who really enjoys sex and really wants to exude sexuality and enjoy sexual encounters and cannot even imagine, being in a sexless relationship, and that's just so important to them. And then you have most of us that are in between, and it kind of varies. So is there such a thing of too much? If you're not enjoying it, I would say, why are you doing it? And therefore, maybe that would be too much. But I guess the other criteria you might use is if it's creating problems. So is too much sex because now I'm masturbating instead of going to work, or I'm making my kids wait in a hot car because I'm having sex or looking up sex dates or whatever. So if it has an adverse consequence, that might be another consideration for too much of a good thing, where it starts becoming a problem in your life. Does that answer the question, Lana? And then what were the other points?
The other one was, will it make your partner less interesting over time? And can you get desensitized to sex?
Yeah, I think, everybody has to determine what I like to call their erotic blueprint. And all of us, it's as unique as your thumbprint. Who we are erotically and what we want to experience erotically. And if we're in alignment with who we are authentically, sexually, we don't get bored of that. We just don't. It's enlivening, it's an expression of who we are, and it's pleasurable, and it's vitalizing, and no, we don't get bored of that. That doesn't get old. And the last part of that, did I answer that?
Was, can you get desensitized?
You can get a rigid arousal pattern, meaning like if, sometimes men get this, and women too, if they masturbate in a particular way, then they can only orgasm through that particular way. But again, we're going back to our definition of sex. Is that a problem? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it might be fine if you want to enjoy other ways of giving and receiving pleasure and connection, that would be great. But I wouldn't say there is a myth. I think if she's referring to, and let me know offline if you want to ask more specifically, like there's this myth that if women use vibrators, then they will get desensitized. That is a myth. I can tell you that right now. And that is a myth that's perpetuated in patriarchy. And I can also tell you that less than 3% of women actually get sufficient stimulation to orgasm through vaginal penetration alone. Less than 3%. About 30% do because they're giving themselves clitoral stimulation while engaged in penetrative sex. And the rest of the group, 70% of us, we don't need any kind of vaginal penetration at all. And so, again, that comes from a very male model of what sex is and how to get orgasm, and it's perpetuated in popular media and in porn, where women are getting thrusted and having an orgasm. They're being paid to pretend that they're having a good time. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Ask your partner what they like.
And as long as we're talking about casting, this question is for you, Tamara. How do you find the character that you are seeking?
And that's an interesting process. The first thing I like to do is first you envision where you want to be. Like I'll get a little personal here. I recently left a marriage that was difficult for me. And I came out of it and I said, who do I want to be now? And that's when I came up with the role model of Anna Wintour. I didn't want to come out of it being, I'm a single parent, I have a child, I am 57, and wasn't sure if I was sexual or not anymore, and all of these things were going on in my head, and I had to look for what I wanted to be. So the first thing I did is just look for role models. Look for people doing what you want to do, being what you want to be, people you can relate to. She's an editor, and I love the whole thing with Vogue, I love the editorial thing. The fact that I could relate to her being a single mom, the fact that she was successful in her business, she carries herself well, that's what I want to be. Do I always show up like that? I'm still working on it. Do I make $2 million a year? I'm still working on it. But because I have that vision for my character, I'm not saying that I'm Anna Wintour, I'm my version of my character in that position in my life. So I'm going to dress a certain way, I'm going to carry myself a certain way. When problems come up, I'm going to behave aligned with that, but still authentically me. So you don't give up yourself in this. You are really finding the most advanced part of yourself, or the next advanced part of yourself. Because when you get there, there's another level of excitement awaiting. Does that answer it?
Thank you. So Andy, this is, since we're in a place where we're talking about trust and trusted sexual environments and trust of identifying for ourselves, when it comes to your finances, it can be hard to know who we can trust to provide us with good, objective, healthy information. So what are some of the key characteristics a woman should look for in a financial advisor? I have a follow-up to it.
What are the characteristics you should look for when you're looking for anyone who's going to help you? Whether it's a physician, whether it's a sex therapist, whether it's a media professional, what are you looking for? Well, they always tell us that it needs to be somebody that we know, like, and trust, right? Those are three really critical areas. The other piece is, too, is who did you get referred to that person? Because that means that whomever referred you already has an experience with that person, and that they can, if you will, verify that, you know, they're not going to be here today and gone tomorrow. One of the biggest things that I see in my industry that just makes me want to scream to high heaven is a lot of people will have sons or daughters who get into our profession. And sons and daughters are told when they get into our profession, call your family first. And they'll sell you something and then they're gone. 10% of the people who get into our industry make it, which means 90% are gone. So how long has that person been in the business? What's their commitment? Were they in a like-kind industry before they got here? Like maybe they were in banking, and then they got into financial services, which could be a natural progression. But just really make sure, and then most importantly, whatever it is that they're going to tell you should never be based on opinion, because we've all got one. It should be something that can be verified. And so just make sure that you're looking at that criteria. A lot of people want to make sure, you know, what kind and how many initials that they have behind their name. I think someone who's certified, there are many certifications that you can attain, but there are also people who have been in this business for a long time who are really good at what they do that don't have initials behind their name. So do you know them? Do you like them? Do you trust them? And how did you get to them? I would say that's probably one of the biggest ones. How did you get to them?
So can I follow on by asking what kinds of questions or what questions would you suggest a woman ask her financial advisor?
Well, I think one of the most important things that has come out of the upheaval of 2008, one of the first things I would ask, and it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable on both sides of the desk. How do you make your money? How do you get paid? That's a really important question to ask because it'll give you a clue as to how they're going to guide you. Mm-hmm. But if they're hesitant to answer that question, that's probably a really good indication that maybe you ought to put your shoes on and go the other way. You know, how do you make your money, and how much money are you going to be paid by what exactly it is that you're recommending that I do with you? And one of the, you know, our new administration decided that the DOL ruling wasn't important. So the fiduciary part of this has been put on hold, which means the fiduciary responsibility is that we have to do what's in your best interest rather than what's in our best interest. And that ruling's been put on hold. So again, make sure that when you're working with somebody, how do you get paid? How much are you going to get paid? And what's in it for you? And most importantly, once we get that stuff out of the way, what's in it for me? How am I going to gain from this?
Isa, you talk about the patriarchal approach to human sexuality. Do you see this changing, and what we're now seeing is the shifting social norms for women? Mm-hmm. And how do we escalate that change so our daughters will not be victim of the same mythology and our sons will be enlightened in their sexuality?
That's such a great question. I love that question. So a few things to say about that. I do think it's changing, but I think one of the number one social changes that's really supporting this is that now people want more from their committed relationships or their marriages than they ever have before. So, you know, in the 50s or even 30 years ago, you know, marriage was really more of an economic institution, where now it's become a service economy, just like business, where we want to feel wanted and desired, and we have options, and we have the women's movement, and we have the gay movement, we have a lot of movements that have allowed people more choices and more freedoms, which means the standards for me to opt in have been greatly increased. I have other choices. I don't need you to be economically solvent, is that the right? To be economically sound. So then we want to try harder at this. So a great book and a great person to know about who's really on this is Emily Nagoski, and her book is The New Sexual Science That Will Change Your Sex Life. And she talks all about responsive and spontaneous desire and the research around that. And one of the important points that she makes is that both genders need to be educated about this, because, you know, I didn't get to make this point, which is such a critical point. You know, the patriarchal male model is, you know, desire, arousal, orgasm, whereas a typically responsive model that was studied and researched and developed in the 1990s by Dr. Bassel is sexual engagement begins with willingness for people with responsive desire, and it's willingness to get aroused, and then my desire is born out of the arousal. So it's a complete flip-flop. So if you can approach your partner with, no, I don't really want to have sex, but I'm willing to get engaged, and let's see what my body does. You know, inspire me. You know? Then we're talking. You know what I mean? So it is a mutual education, I think, for having both needs met, and for the male partner to understand that responsive desire is not male sexuality light or male sexuality broken, which is so much the experience of couples that have this kind of mismatched desire. I mean, responsive desire is awesome. It's going to motivate some amazing experiences, so use it. Enjoy it.
What's the name of the book again?
Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. Another really good book for young women and young men is Becoming Cliterate by another colleague and friend, Dr. Lori Mentz. So she's being nominated for a book award this year. So Becoming Cliterate is a great book that talks about a lot of these myths, and it has a little abbreviated section for the male reader in the back. Written exactly for him. And then in Emily's book, it's written for women, but I've talked to her about, you know, marketing it to men as well, because it's so important. And the women read it and they get so excited and they want their male partner to get it. Like, I have responsive desire, it's a thing. And they're like, what are you talking about? You know? So those are two really good books I'd suggest.
No offense, Nate. We love you.
Yes, don't worry.
The only white chromosome in the room. So Tamara, this question is, how can we shift our script, that internal noise, that's the overriding noise that limits how we as women lead our lives? Can we use the same intentional scripting for internal messaging?
That is a great question, and absolutely, yes, you can. The first step in doing that is to recognize what your internal voice is saying. Because if you don't pay attention to what that is, you're not even going to start to address it. And once you do that, you can look back and trace the roots of where it came from. Is this something you learned from your parents, from experience, from other women? And then you can talk to it and make friends with it in your scripting. I journaled some of these things I have a journal process in these, where you list the things that are holding you back. The belief systems in your mind that don't support you, you turn into systems that do support you. And you can make friends with it. Thank you for getting me here. Let's move on. And if I'm moving on into my successful me, what is that going to look like? And can I accept that? And can I own that? And you become friends with that new thing. It's like writing an affirmation. You end up changing your beliefs, and you script your own beliefs. rather than letting your belief system run your script.
Okay, so this one is for each one of you, all three of you. Doesn't it seem that we're in a constant state of exhaustion and overwhelm in our changing political climate, social norms, relationships, work and business expectations as women? When we are exhausted and overwhelmed, it can feel next to impossible to feel inspired to improve our situations around money, around relationships, around sexuality, or our community. Would each of you suggest one way that we can move through that overwhelm, that inner conflict, and take action to improve and restore our financial health, our sexual health, or our image?
Can I tell this story?
Of course.
At about 10 o'clock this morning, I called Annie and I said, I don't know if I can do this tonight. I am so overwhelmed. I went to the doctor yesterday. I said, I am so tired. I'm exhausted. And I got diagnosed with fatigue. My blood results show nothing. He said, you're probably just stressed. And I could go on with all the things that you all know we all have to deal with, including, children and work and homes and taxes, etc. And I still owe Annie another visit. So what I did is I sat down and I said, this is ridiculous. I'm letting my life run me. I'm going to sit down and script my shift into my day. Knowing all of this stuff that I have to deal with and all of the stuff that's going on and the fact that I was so exhausted, what could I do to get here and show up tonight and be, upholding my word and doing what I want to do? So I took a moment and I made a little schedule for myself and I talked to myself about how I could show up and what I needed from the day so that I could take care of everything that was pressing on me for tomorrow. I took a nap. I gave myself time to take a nap, and I hand wrote the words on the back of these rather than printing them because that was quicker, and I just made it work. When I took the minute to write down what's important to me, can I take care of my son's needs, can I prepare and be there tonight, can I meet the deadlines that I have to meet, and can I still do all that when, with giving myself the time to rest? And I made it happen. So, taking the moment to look at what's happening to you and instead changing the story and make your life happen.
You inspired us. So we needed you here.
So I would say 3 things to that. First of all, whoever put that message out there, you're not alone. I think all of us now are finding it's just the pace of life and the accessibility of work and everything is becoming very consuming. And so I think it's really important to take the time to just kind of reevaluate really what you want your life to feel like and be like, and how you want to experience your life, and to really assume that leadership role. And so it becomes really easy, or I'll say easier, to say no when there's that greater yes burning within. So I'll often say no because I'm going to just have nothing to do for a while, so I can have a nap, so I can just not be feeling rushed. So that would be one thing. And the other thing I would say is be kind and give yourself a lot of slack. Like, I cut myself so much slack. I had a busier day than I anticipated today. Doctor's appointments ran longer, and then I noticed that kind of feeling of overwhelm and like, I'm doing that pearl scene tonight, there's gonna be traffic, and why did I say yes, all of that, And then you're okay with me saying that, right? I'm just But and then I realized, I'm just gonna cut myself some slack. I'm just gonna not bring a bunch of, I feel like swearing for some reason. So I don't have to do a lot of shit for a table. I don't want to cart around a bunch of books, and I had the opportunity to do that. I didn't. I just, I was gonna put a lot of time into a talk. I'm like, I'm just gonna be with y'all and talk and just trust that's gonna be enough.
Yep.
Because that's all I can do. You know what I mean? So those are the things. Thanks. So that's what I do. I cut myself some slack and I return to myself and I give myself permission just to be what I am.
I think one of the things that's most important is, when was the last time you allowed yourself to be quiet? You know, we all get in those head races. I mean, it's, you know, whether it's in the middle of the night or the minute our feet hit the ground in the morning, the race is on. And one of the things that I do to prepare myself for the day is whether I'm hiking or I take my 2 little dogs for a walk, it's quiet time. You know, it just gives me an opportunity to think about my day. You know, I already know what my schedule is. I know what my calendar says, but it gives me an opportunity to think about my day. Like, I'll be excited about different clients for different reasons. I'll be excited if, you know, I get to have lunch with someone that I haven't seen in a long time. You know, I was excited about pearls tonight. But I think one of the things that's really important is to take some time to be quiet, you know, to really get centered on what's important to me. Because all the rest of it is white noise, and it's gonna make you crazy. I mean, I speak from experience. So take some time to be quiet. And then the other couple of things I would say is knowing is not doing. Because we all know what we need to do, but knowing it doesn't create action. And one of the most important things we can do is to take one step, whatever that one step is, and the one step will get you in motion to create the life that you want. But so many times we stop ourselves because we won't take that one step. Whether it's, do I need to come see Isa? Do I need to have my script put together by Tamra? Do I need to go to a YWCA event because I know it's going to enrich my life? Am I glad that I held my commitment for Pearls of Wisdom tonight? You know, it's interesting to me.
I am, by the way.
Me too.
Thank you.
I knew I was going to get over the hump. I knew that. I just cut myself some slack and that'd be fine.
It's interesting to me, though. We had 75 RSVPs for tonight. And, you know, we're about half there. And it's like, I often wonder, what happened? You know, were they exhausted? Were they diagnosed with fatigue? Right? Did they go home and have great sex and say, honey, I'm not getting up? You know? I mean, whatever it is, but right? I think that it's really important if we know something we need to do, that we take one step. And it might be a really small step. It also might be a gigantic one, but take one action.